Hey guys, and what's going on? Tyrauku here, back with another raid video, of course, right? Now, today I want to talk about something we all know and love, which is the arena. Now, Larium recently said that they did have a fix for the arena. I don't know. You guys can let me know. How does the arena feel for you? So I know they said that it was for bronze and silver, not so much for gold. So if you're in bronze and silver arena, let me know. Have you stopped seeing these daggone like gold 4 fully decked out legendary teams that there's no way you can beat? I'm curious because I haven't seen a lot of stuff down there since the new update came out. So let me know what you guys are seeing and how it feels being down there if you're in bronze or silver arena. So a few things. First off, you can see my gems are pretty low. We had the 2x event going on for Dragon Speed Gear, so a lot more people are probably going to be trying to speed tune their arena teams because now you're actually going to be faster, assuming you got some good gear from the Dragon. Unfortunately, my drop luck was not great. I will be rolling that up on stream tonight to see how it went, which I'll be streaming on Wednesday, which is today, at reset. So probably in a few minutes after this video goes live, you can check out the Twitch channel. But besides that, guys, today I want to talk about 5 things that could be messing you up in the arena and talk about speed tuning. So if you already know about speed tuning your arena team, go ahead and double tap your screen a few times if you're watching mobile, or tap, I think, the L key on keyboard. Go ahead and fast forward through this video. It's probably not going to be beneficial to you, this first part, but the next part could be beneficial. And some of these things I just recently realized, at least not too long ago, and there are little tweaks you can make that makes your team run smoother. So speaking of speed tuning, if you ever want to speed tune your team, go to deadwoodjedi.com/arena-calculator. Okay. This is where you can calculate how fast your champions need to be. Now, I know a lot of people are kind of confused about how this works. So let me go ahead and break it down. I'm going to use the example of having an arbiter as the speed leader. So your arbiter's right here, speed champion. This just puts her aura in the calculations because if you're using arbiter, you're probably using her as the speed leader, right? That only makes sense. So let's just say, for example, our arbiter is the fastest champion on our team. In most cases, she will be. And the display speed, this is how much speed she actually has. So let's just say our arbiter has 330 speed. We boosted that up, a little bit after farming dragon quite a bit. So this is looking pretty good. We do have 3 speed sets on her. And we do have Lore of Steel. This will change that number just a little bit, not a huge difference, but go ahead and do all this. And then which ability does she use? So if you go in here and look at Arbiter, you'll know that her A3 ability is ability that boosts the turn meter. This is the ability that you want to use very first. So you go ahead and select A3. Now you don't see any change yet, but you will in just a second. So the second champion, let's use the example of let's use a Lysandra. I can give 2 examples in this one champion. So Lysandra also has some speed boosting abilities. Now Arbiter, her A3, it says that Lysandra, in order for her to go right after Arbiter without being cut in on, assuming there's no enemy effects, which I'm going to get into later on, your Lysandra would need to be 243.83 speed. Now, you're not able to get that exact speed number. It's going to be pretty hard. So try for like 244, 245. I would shoot on the side of going a little bit over that speed versus going a little bit under it, because even if you're a few points under it, the enemy can still cut in, and you don't want that happening. So with Arbiter, let's say I switch it to the A2 ability instead of the A3. You can see here that now Lysandra needs to be 329 speed to go right after Arbiter. So you can obviously see the benefits of having a speed booster champion, right? So that's that situation. After your Lysandra, let's just say you had a Madame Ceres. It doesn't matter who this is. Typically, for like a speed team, you're going to have a speed booster, increase attack, and our Arbiter, another speed manipulation champion, maybe an increased speed, which does help out quite a bit, or a turn meter boost champion second right after Arbiter as well, just so this third champion doesn't have to go as fast. So our third champion is Madam. Doesn't matter what she uses. She has no turn meter manipulation effects anyways. But Lysandra is going to use her A3 ability, which if you don't know about Lysandra, her A3 ability is places 30% increased speed buff on all allies for 2 turns, fills the turn meter of all allies by 30%, and decreases the turn meter of all enemies by 30%. Now, when you look at this, this is a big drop, right? 179 down from 261. So Madam, if Lysandra uses her A3 ability, Madam only needs to be 179 speed. But not everything is as it seems. So Lysandra's ability has a few things. One, a guaranteed effect from the increased speed and the increased turn meter, but it also has an effect that requires you winning the accuracy check on the enemy, right? So if you want to decrease the enemy's accuracy, you have to have enough accuracy, or decrease the enemy's turn meter, better yet, you have to have enough accuracy on Lysandra to actually do that. So this button right here, which is ally accuracy, this basically means that you win the accuracy check and Lysandra would decrease the enemy's turn meter. If I select this to yes, you'll see that Madame Ceres now goes from needing 79 speed to now only needing 111 speed. Now you got to be careful with this because there is always a chance to be resisted. So if your Lysandra does get resisted, then this could be all out of tune. But if everything goes smoothly and your Lysandra does win the accuracy check, whether it's Lysandra, Sylar, it doesn't matter, all those champions who decrease the enemy's turn meter, this would apply to. If they do end up getting resisted by somebody, this could get out of whack, and you don't want that to happen. Now, your fourth champion, let's just say you're using a nuker of Kale, all right? You have all these legendaries, crazy champions, and then you have Kale. In this case, you see the speed change right there because we have 4 people on the team. So in this situation, if Lysandra does her A3 ability and it does reduce the enemy's turn meter, then Madam is going to need 134 speed, and Kale is going to need 133 speed, which round these up, even do a few extra points just to make sure it's safe. So this is the basic of speed tuning. If you want to get more in depth, test some things out, see if your team's in line, go here. But now that you know about speed tuning, let me talk about some things that can mess up your arena team. So the first one was your team not being speed tuned. So if you have your common mistake is having your nuker going before your debuffer or going before your increased attack champion, you want your increased attack champion, your debuffer, your speed booster, all those champions to go before your nuke champion. You want your nuke champion to be in a situation to do as much damage as possible, obviously, because they're there to one-shot the enemy, basically, right? Now, we got through that whole point, hopefully from that little illustration of Deadwood's speed calculator for the arena. The second point I want to make, and this one's a little bit more subtle, you may not even realize it's happening, but cycle of revenge, okay? This mastery can mess up your arena speed tunes and you won't even know it. So this has a double-sided negative, possibly, but it does have its uses as well. So this ability has a 50% chance of increasing the turn meter by 15% when an ally is attacked with a critical hit. Will only increase the turn meter once if an ally receives multiple critical hits from a single skill. Now, let me give you one example of where this could mess up your speed tune. Say the enemy ended up going first, they did cut in, but you know your team's speed tuned, and the enemy team, let's say they get cut in somehow, okay? Well, you start with your first champion, your speed booster goes, your second champion goes, but then it comes to your debuffer and your nuker has taken a turn, but your debuffer hasn't gone yet. Well, you take a look at your nuke champion, and they have this cycle of revenge ability, this cycle of revenge mastery on them. What could have happened is your nuke champion could have had this ability activate, and since your nuke champion and your debuffer were so close in the same speed, what happened was this increased turn meter on your nuke champion pushed them in front of your debuffer, which throws off your entire team's tune, which is not very good. Obviously, you want your debuffer going before your nuker. If not, he just hits like a noodle, right? The other situation where this is kind of bad, and this is a big reason why I don't use Lydia very much, is if your nuke champion is a little bit out of tune, like you're a few speed off, or you're just barely in tune, like just a few speed in the tune, but you use a champion like Lydia, who has an AoE ability that does damage to the enemy, Lydia, Venus, Ghostborn, anybody who has an ability where it says attacks all enemies, this ability can be a crit, okay? And what happens is if that ability does crit on the enemy, most champions on the enemy's team, at least the speed boosters, are probably going to be running that cycle of revenge. So what could happen, and I've had it happen to me before, and I was confused as to why I was getting cut in on, what happens is when your champion crits the enemy, one of those champions are getting their turn meter boosted, allowing them to cut in on your nuke champion and throwing off your entire arena speed tune that you thought was perfect for so long. So that's a very subtle thing that can happen. I overlooked it for a long time, but this mastery is very good on champions who it doesn't really matter their order. So I'll have it on my speed boosters all the time. I'll have it on my second to go champion. But a lot of times when I nuke champions, I try to stay away from this as much as I can. It does have its places. And obviously, if they crit your entire team, your chances of getting your turn meter boosted on everybody is pretty good. But just be aware that could mess things up. The second thing I want to go over, I guess technically the third thing I want to go over, is enemies' boosts and enemies' passives based on casts that you do. All right, so there's 3 champions specifically that I want to talk about, and that is actually 4. That is Countess Lix, Astrolog, Valkyrie, and Yoshi. So go right here to Astrolog. Astrolog has an ability that says, fills this champion's turn meter by 3% every time an ally is hit, decreases incoming damage by 25% if the attacker's attack is lower than this champion, okay? So that part doesn't matter. The first part is what we want to focus on, okay? So you may not realize this is happening because it probably doesn't happen until your nuker already goes, assuming you don't have anybody hitting Astrolog. But if you have 2 nukers and your Astrolog cuts in, an enemy Astrolog cuts in before your second nuker goes and you thought your team was speed tuned, this could be why. Especially if you're doing an AoE ability, because his turn meter gets filled each time an ally is hit. So you could definitely boost his turn meter very high, very quickly. And when he starts, he's going to use his A3 ability and stun your entire team. So you got to be mindful of Astrolog. And when you're attacking him, you really want to just do one hit and be done, right? Yoshi is another one. His ability fills this champion's turn meter by 4% each time an enemy receives a buff. So if you're running a champion like Duchess, a champion like Siphi, any champion who places a few buffs, Yoshi's going to get his turn meter filled by 4% each time an enemy receives a buff. If you have an entire team, you're giving Yoshi quite a bit of turn meter boosted. Now this can be used for your benefit, or it can be used to, I guess, your downfall. I mean, if you plan Yoshi around this, you can do good with him. Or if you attack an enemy Yoshi, don't plan for this, it could be pretty bad. Because what's going to happen, and I believe he uses this ability first, is if he boosts and cuts in, he has a chance of placing True Fear on all enemies for 1 turn. And it's a 75% chance instead if the enemies are under an increased attack buff. Why this is so important is because this 75%, basic math, 75, 85, 100% if fully booked, increased attack, that's your nuke champion, right? So if he cuts in, it's probably going to be in between your nuke champion, and he has a 100% chance, assuming that his accuracy is good, of placing True Fear on your nuke champion, which will more than likely proc. I mean, True Fear always procs on me for some reason whenever I need it to not activate the most. So keep that in mind. Yoshi can definitely throw off your speed tune and make it look like your teams are not actually tuned. The next 2 champions are Countess Lix and Valkyrie, which unfortunately I don't have, but Countess Lix is well, I'd say similar to Astrolog, but not really. Hers fills this champion's turn meter by 5% each time an ally receives a debuff. All right. So if you're using a Madame Ceres, you're debuffing a team with Countess Lix on it. Countess Lix is gaining turn meter whenever an ally receives a debuff. So she's going to cut in. I believe she uses his A3 or her A2 first. I'm not for sure which one, but either one of them are bad because if she cuts in, she's going to be either blocking your active skills or reducing your turn meter. So if you're going against a Countess, and once again, if you're wondering why your speed tune's messed up, that very well could be because she's gaining turn meter whenever your debuff champion is applying those debuffs to the enemy team. Got to watch out for her. And the last champion I want to mention, there probably is some more champions. I'm not 100% sure. And obviously, as raid progresses, there's going to be more and more champions who do this turn meter manipulation based on effects that the enemy casts. But right now, these are the main 4 ones that I see in Arena. Hers is this champion's turn meter will be increased by 10% each time an enemy champion places a buff. Enemy champions will have their turn meter decreased by 10% for each buff they receive. That's big, especially if you have a Siphi or something like that, giving your champions their buffs, okay? If you just have an Arbiter placing 1 buff, okay, maybe you can survive with that. But if you have somebody placing a lot of buffs, it's going to be a big turn meter decrease. 30% or even more can definitely throw off his speed tune. Valkyrie's going to cut in. She's going to place the increase, or she's going to place counterattack, big shield. She is definitely a champion who's very, very good in the arena, and she's very, very annoying. And I've seen her throw off more speed tunes than any other champion, and people will say, why are my speed tunes not working? Why are my champions getting thrown off? Most of the time it's, hey, did you fight a Valkyrie? They say, yeah, I did. Well, that's probably why. You probably had some buffs go up and Valkyrie messed your team up. So the other thing with her is when she's doing that, she's reducing the enemy's turn meter. So that's a higher chance of the Arbiter or the speed booster, whoever's on her team, of getting their turn sooner. And then if your team is speed tuned, then going through their rotation and possibly killing the enemy. So Valkyrie, if you don't have her built and you just leave it in your vault, 1, that's kind of crazy. But 2, she's a very good arena champion. And I hope I pull her this weekend on the 2X Ancient event because I would love to use her in the arena. The 4th tip, the 4th little suggestion is something that should be kind of, I imagine most people know about this one, but that's basically fighting its teams that you don't really have the correct answers for or preparation for. So teams like Tormund and teams like Hedgie, okay? When I say teams, those two champions alone basically make up their own team. They're super, super annoying. So Tormund and Hedgie both need specific answers. Now, there's a lot of other videos going in depth how you can counter Tormund's, how you can counter Hedgie's, but Hedgie typically has two builds, either a nuke Hedgie or a crowd control Hedgie. The nuke Hedgie is going to do a lot of damage. Crowd control one is going to lock you out. Well, you can't really tell. I mean, you can tell to a point, but most of the time, it's going to be difficult to pick and choose which Hedgie is which. So you kind of got to build to be tanky, be survivable, and have some way to either cleanse that potential block cooldowns or ignore it all altogether with like an immunity set. So Hedgie is definitely a champion who's a little bit difficult to go against, but once you build a team to specifically counter Hedgies, you beat most Hedgie teams because most Hedgie teams really rely on Hedgemon to kind of carry them, at least through like lower levels of the arena. But once you can beat him, you can beat a lot of them. And I mean, especially lower on, you may be able to build enough resistance to go against them perfectly fine. But accuracy is so easy to build in this game now that it may actually be kind of difficult to build high enough resistance to actually resist him. I mean, he needs no speed, right? Like, he always goes first each round. So you don't have to build him with speed. You just throw some accuracy on him, and he's good to go. Now, Tormund, on the other hand, he has a issue that I hate. I hate him. I don't like... Tormund is my most... I guess I want him, but I don't like him. He freezes so often. So if you go against a Tormund and you have somebody who increases turn meter, you have somebody who does buffs, they're probably going to get frozen, and he's going to make it super annoying. You can counter that a few different ways, obviously with some cleanses, immunity. Hedgies and Tormunds are very similar in how you counter them. Hedgie being the more difficult one because you have to have the buffs up before the match actually starts. So like an immunity set, Krisk, shield sets, things like that. Or somebody who can cleanse instantly in an immunity set. Whereas with Tormund, you can bring in somebody like Siphi, Skytouch Shaman, somebody to place a block debuff skill before the Tormund goes, and you should be perfectly fine against Tormund. So he's a little bit easier to counter, I believe, but they're both champions who can really destroy your arena push. And honestly, I just skip them. There's so many other options in the arena. Don't just save yourself the headache. Don't hit these teams. Like, they're annoying. All right, so the next and final tip, guys, is resistance tuning, okay? So you hear about speed tuning, you hear about making sure your accuracy is good and all that kind of stuff, but resistance tuning is actually pretty important. So where this will come into play, this would actually come into play against this team very well. So say, for example, I had my, let's just use an extreme here. I had my Ray with 500 resistance, okay? My Madame Saris had, well, say 100 resistance, okay? So she's not resisting anything. Ray is resisting everything. Well, the enemy goes first. Arbiter does a turn meter boost. And then Lysandra manipulates the turn meter, okay? So she reduces all of my champion's turn meter except for Ray, because Ray has very high resistance. Well, with my Ray's speed, what's probably going to happen is Ray is going to go right after Arbiter and Siphi take their turns, and then it's going to be Ray, and then Madam's going to go after Ray. Whereas if I had Madam's resistance a little bit higher than Ray's, it doesn't have to be drastically higher. It just needs to be where if one of them gets turn meter reduced, both of them get the turn meter reduced, because you really don't want, especially don't want your debuffer to get their turn meter reduced, but your nuke champion to not, because then your nuke champion is going to take a turn, like we mentioned before your debuff champion takes a turn. So in most cases, I try to keep my resistance between my nuke champion and my debuff champion pretty close to each other. Now, it is important to keep in mind, you do want them to be kind of close, because the best case scenario would be they both resist or they both get the turn meter reduced, because if they didn't, and say your debuffer didn't get her turn meter reduced, but your Ray or your nuker did get their turn meter reduced, then what could happen is Madam could strip the entire enemy team, and then the enemy team could have somebody like a Skytouch Shaman, a Siphi, or somebody who could buff up their team, and then when your Ray or your nuker goes to attack, it's going to be messed up. So you definitely want to consider resistance tuning your team. At least make sure the resistance is as close together as you can get it. That should help you out quite a bit in the arena. Hopefully these tips, guys, give you a little bit more direction, and hopefully they help you with building out your teams in general. And hopefully maybe you found something you didn't think of before. But thank you all very much for watching this video. Don't forget to click the link on one of the videos that are about to pop up, and I'll catch you in the next one.